Q Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @CuneReview, that is @symbol CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@cunereview.com. That is INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Herald Scotland, on Wednesday the 22nd of May 2024. From the news section. Kenny's music group, founded in Dundee, eyes Edinburgh move. This is an exclusive article written by Mark Williamson and read by me, Corey. One of Scotland's most successful entrepreneurs aims to shake up the guitar retailing business amid signs the public will give strong backing to the move. 3 years after the multi-million-dollar sale of Vegware, compostable packaging business he founded, Joe Frankel has set out to revitalise the instrument sales market through the Kenny's Music Group. Mr. Frankel's investment in the group forms part of a portfolio he has developed since leaving Edinburgh-based Vegware in 2022. This includes interests in areas ranging from surfing to affordable homes. He said Kenny's aims to become a UK destination for instrument buyers by taking advantage of the opportunities offered by having bricks and mortar stores. The business provides spaces Mr. Frankel recommends can help build communities while allowing potential buyers to explore their individual interests in an unhurried way with advice on buying from musicians. Music is all about communities, said Mr. Frankel, who added, you really need to touch and feel an instrument and know how it will play. Even from early in a musical career, an instrument is very personal. Mr. Frankel stated playing the banjo 27 years ago after seeing the film O Brother, Where Art Thou?, which is set in Mississippi. Kenny stores will major on selling pre-loved guitars. Mr. Frankel noted these can generate strong interest among enthusiasts. It has outlets in Glasgow, Dundee, Aberdeen and Dunfermline. They also host events that could encourage people to become repeat visitors, including seminars and classes. The Glasgow store showcases buskers, while the one in Dundee has open mic sessions that are live streamed on the internet. Mr. Frankel said the business plans to open a combined store and music venue in Edinburgh. The group will also look to leverage the Kenny's Music brand online to grow its business. This will involve using apps and the like to create a seamless way for people to sell instruments to the firm. Kenny's plan to raise £200,000 expansion funding through a share offer on the Crowdcube platform, but may end up with a significantly larger amount. While the offer only opens formally today, Mr. Frankel said Kenny's had already secured £180,000 funding pledges. Mr. Frankel invested an initial £110,000 in Kenny's after teaming up with music industry veteran Alex Martin. He plans to invest £60,000 in the latest round. The pair were motivated to acquire the 4 stores when the founder of the business, Kenny Graham, was looking to exit the business, and there seemed to be a risk the outlets might close. We thought that would be a huge shame, said Mr. Frankel. Not only would you have had lots of job losses, but you would have lost 4 stores with long histories in their respective cities. He added, Alex is a musician too, So for both of us, it's a mix of high growth business opportunity and passion project. Mr. Frankel went into business after gaining a PhD in speech recognition at the University of Edinburgh. He founded Vegware in 2006 to develop packaging made from plant-based materials and help it win global recognition for products ranging from cups to takeaway containers. North Carolina-based Novolex is thought to have paid tens of millions of dollars for Vegware in August of 2021. Mr. Frankel resigned as managing director in November of 2022. When asked why he left, Mr. Frankel said, "I had been on an amazing journey at Vegware, and it felt like the time for a change. I'm someone with lots of interests outside work." The surfing enthusiast is in the research and development phase of a project to develop a recyclable surfboard. He has a stake in the Lost Shore Surf Resort in Edinburgh. Mr. Frankel, who also invested in social housing in Edinburgh, where he noted there is a shortage of property for people in housing crisis, and owns the building occupied by the Fierce Beer pub in the centre of the city. Jim Ramsey's Glasgow-based Guitar Trade Centre is expected to join forces with Kenny's Music if the Crown Cube round is successful. That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was an exclusive article written by Mark Williamson and read by me, Corey. The Herald Scotland on Wednesday the 22nd of May 2024. From the news section. Rapid increase in type 2 diabetes cases among young Scots. This article was written by Helen McArdle and read by me, Corey. A charity has called on politicians to tackle our broken food environment amid an alarming increase in cases of type 2 diabetes among young people. The charity estimates that the number of adults under 40 in Scotland diagnosed with the condition has climbed by 32%, from 6,293 in 2016 to 2017 to 8,338 in 2022 to 2023. The incidence has risen roughly twice as fast among young adults compared to the general population, with cases of diabetes as a whole, including the rarer type 1, up by just 16% overall during the same period. Type 2 diabetes has historically been associated with older people, and still remains relatively rare, accounting for 2.5% of the known cases in Scotland. However, the condition is known to have more severe and acute consequences in people under 40, and without the right treatment and support, it can lead to serious complications such as kidney failure and heart disease. Those who develop type 2 diabetes at a younger age are also more likely to die prematurely. Similar patterns are being seen nationally, with cases of diabetes among under 40s up by 39%, UK-wide since 2016. In a report to be unveiled at the House of Parliament today, charity Diabetes UK said the figures were a wake-up call, as it urged the UK government and policymakers to seize a generational opportunity to tackle the crisis with a range of measures, including addressing the factors causing obesity and health inequalities. It calls for all political parties to commit to better access to green space, affordable, healthy food and quality housing, a commitment to introduce restrictions around junk food promotions, increased long-term investment in targeted support programs for those most at risk of diabetes. John Kinnear, National Director, Diabetes Scotland, said, "The rise in diagnosis of type 2 diabetes in people under 40 in Scotland and across the UK is alarming. It is a damning indictment of the barriers that many of us face to living a healthy life, where good food is affordable and exercise is accessible. There is a generational opportunity to stop this crisis in its tracks, and we are calling on all political parties to seize it. We need bold action to reverse the rising trend in type 2 diabetes, overturn our broken food environment, and give every child and young person the best possible chance to grow up in good health. The Scottish Government is currently consulting again on proposals to restrict retail price promotions on products high in fat, sugar and salt, plans which were delayed during the pandemic and then sent back to the drawing board in the wake of the cost of living crisis and inflation. Mr. Kinnear said the charity looks forward to robust legislation that supports people to eat well and have a healthy weight, adding, "The decisions taken now will not only determine the health of young people today, but also the next generation. There are also concerns that many young people will be living with undiagnosed type 2 diabetes. A recent report by the Office of National Statistics estimated that, in England, 50% of those aged 16 to 44 with the condition had not yet received a diagnosis. If that was also the case in Scotland, it would suggest that thousands of young people have developed diabetes without knowing about it. There is no single cause for type 2 diabetes, but genetics, age, ethnicity, body weight, and individual physiology, if you are predisposed to store fat around your middle, for example, are all factors. It comes amid growing concerns about the number of working-age adults who have dropped out of the labour force due to ill health. A recent study presented at the European Congress on Obesity last week found that people who are overweight and obese, major risk factors for the onset of type 2 diabetes, were significantly more likely to take sick leave from work than healthy weight colleagues. That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was written by Helen McArdle, and it was read by me, Corey. The Herald Scotland, on Wednesday the 22nd of May, 2024. From the news section. Scots' £1 million a month emergency ferry previously crashed after master fell asleep. This article was written by Martin Williams and is being read by me, Corey. The master of a ferry currently being used for Lifeline ferry services fell asleep a matter of seconds before it crashed, causing injuries to 41 passengers and crew, an investigation has found. The Maritime and Coastguard Agency has further said that MV Alfred, run by Pentland Ferries, which is currently being used as a £1 million a month emergency ferry, routinely passed too close to land before the crash in July of 2022. After the accident, it emerged that 6 of the passengers who were injured when the Pentland Ferries ferry ran aground on an uninhabited island off the north coast of Scotland were seeking compensation. After an investigation, the MAIB said that master of the vessel had almost certainly fallen asleep 70 seconds before the accident, allowing the ferry to swing towards land. MV Alfred, once described as the most environmentally friendly ferry in Scotland, had 84 passengers and 13 crew on board when it partially ran aground on the Isle of Soana, the more northerly of 2 islands in the Pentland Firth between the Orkney Isles and Caithness on the Scottish mainland. RNLI lifeboats were called to evacuate the Vietnam-built £14 million catamaran, with 1 person being rushed to hospital with a fractured shoulder. Dozens were feared to have suffered mental trauma and physical injuries, including fractures, sprains, and soft tissue damage. The ferry has since been brought in by Transport Scotland as an emergency vessel from April 2023, with Pentland Ferries operating the services on behalf of the state-owned ferry company CalMac. All crew have been provided by Pentland Ferries, who are responsible for delivering of service and the operational, technical and safety management of the vessel, including maintenance, repair, overhaul and provision of crew throughout the charter period. It comes amidst widespread disruption to services because of issues with vessels discovered during the annual overhaul process. The investigation into the crash found that Alfred grounded because the master experienced a temporary loss of awareness while helming the ship very close to shore. When the master became aware of the vessel's predicament, he was unable to prevent the vessel from striking the rocks. The MAIB said the master's sleep went unnoticed, and he was neither awoken nor alerted because there was no bridge lookout and the BNWAS, Bridge Navigational Watch Alarm System, was switched off. The investigators also found that despite the vessel being aground for over an hour, neither the crew nor the Pentland Ferries ERT, Emergency Response Team, sought to obtain the nominal list of people on board, their injuries, or whether they had been evacuated to the lifeboat. And the MAIB said the number and severity of injuries suffered by Alfred's passengers and crew was almost certainly increased because they were not warned to brace for impact before the vessel grounded at a speed. The impact of the grounding caused part of the galley range, catering equipment, and other heavy objects to break free of their mountings, risking injury to those on board. Almost all the vehicles on board Alfred were probably damaged by the impact of the grounding, because they had not been secured in accordance with the vessel's cargo securing manual. In the wake of the crash, the MAIB issued a major non-conformity because the Pentland Ferries safety management procedures for bridge manning and passage planning were not being followed. Pentland Ferries has amended procedures to improve passage planning procedures, bridge manning, and the use of Bridge Navigational Watch Alarm System. The MAIB said it also improved the quality and detail of emergency drills and the exercises and the emergency response check-off cards, vehicle deck securing, the securing of interior heavy objects, and the identification of passenger muster points. The investigators said it recommended that Pentland Ferries reviews its emergency response team procedures to ensure that it captures passenger details and injuries post-accident. Chief Inspector of Marine Accidents Andrew Mole, OBE, said, "Lots of safety action has been taken as a result of this accident, and I am encouraged by the actions taken by Pentland Ferries to address the issues raised in this report. However, this accident offers a wider opportunity for lessons to be learned across the maritime industry." Alfred's master routinely operated very close to the coast, leaving little margin for error when they found themselves in an unsafe situation. Regardless of the type of vessel you're operating, it is critical that a safety passage plan is made and that it is followed. Always allow sufficient sea room to enable action to be taken in good time if things are not going to plan. On the afternoon of July 5th, 2022, the master almost certainly fell asleep and allowed the ferry to swing towards land. Crew should always be sufficiently well rested when coming on duty. Finally, this case highlights the importance of management assuring themselves that plans and procedures they have put in place are actually being followed. If you have management oversight of a vessel or maritime operation, ask yourself, do I know that our crews and frontline staff are following our procedures? And are our plans fit for purpose in a real-life emergency situation? Pentland Ferries said it welcomed the investigation's report and was continuing to digest its contents. Managing Director Helen Inkster said, "We stand by the premise of the report, which is not to assign blame or liability, but rather to ensure future accidents across the marine industry are prevented. While we will never be complacent, We are satisfied that all the actions that could be taken by Pentland Ferries to ensure passenger safety have already been taken. We will always ensure that our vessels have detailed procedural plans, the right people, and rigorous training regimes in place. That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was written by Martin Williams, and it was read by me, Corey.
From the Herald Scotland, Thursday the 23rd of May, from the sports section. Atalanta's Ademola Lookman pleased with his progress in Italy. Report by Phil Blanche, PA. Ademola Lookman reflected on his Europa League final heroics by insisting he always imagined starring on such a stage when he started his career at Charlton. Lookman became the first player to score a final hat-trick in the competition as Atalanta beat Bayer Leverkusen 3-0 to inflict a first defeat of the season on the Bundesliga champions. It has been a difficult journey for the London-born forward who plays its international football for Nigeria. Lookman struggled to shine at Everton and RB Leipzig after leaving Charlton and had loan spells at Fulham and Leicester before finding consistency in Italy under veteran Atalanta coach Gianpiero Gasperini. Asked if he ever imagined enjoying such a successful high-profile night, Lookman replied, "Probably yeah. I've always had the confidence in my ability to create and score goals, to help my teammates and assist them. The past few years I've been able to take my game to a new level on a more consistent basis. Maybe it would have come earlier, but it's come now and I'm pleased with the progress I've made. This is just the beginning and I hope for more nights like this and to get better and better. That's the key." Lookman has scored 30 goals in 2 seasons at Atalanta, but Gasperini admitted he has been surprised with the 26-year-old's development in Bergamo. He said, "We had a senior manager at Atalanta who had worked at Leicester and so that we had the opportunity to bring him in. We thought he was a possible useful player for us, but no one imagined he could really make this much progress. He wasn't overly prolific in England, but I changed his position a little bit and played him a slightly more attacking role. And now he's achieved something that will remain in the annals of football history." Victory gave unfashionable Atalanta only the second trophy in their 116-year history, 6 decades on from lifting the Coppa Italia in 1963. After masterminding Italy's first win in the competition since 1999, Gasperini said, "It's perhaps one of those footballing fairy tales that very rarely crop up. It does give scope for meritocracy and ideas. It showed that it does not only come down to cold, hard numbers and super leagues. You can also show faith in other teams that don't necessarily have huge budgets but can still achieve great things. Leverkusen were on the brink of an invincible season, having won the first Bundesliga title in their history. They had gone 51 games unbeaten and will finish their campaign by playing second-tier Kaiserslautern in the German Cup final on Saturday." Boss Xabi Alonso said, "We had a bad night. It's a shame, it really hurts in such an important match. They were really intense and better than us. It was not our attitude, it was a football thing, but it's important how we deal with it because we have another big game on Saturday. This hurts for sure, but we must deal with this pain in a positive way. It's quite exceptional what we have achieved and we have to be really proud. It's painful right now, but it is deserved as well." And that report was by Phil Blanche.
This is from the Herald Scotland on Thursday the 23rd of May 2024, from the news section. Ex-post office boss breaks down in tears at Horizon inquiry. This article is written by Josh Carmichael. Former post office boss Paula Venables has broken down in tears twice mid-evidence as she made an emotional appearance at the Horizon IT inquiry. She stopped mid-answer and reached for a tissue as she was grilled about why she had told MPs that the post office had been successful in every case against sub-postmasters. The 65-year-old ordained priest also became visibly upset as the inquiry looked into the post office's response to the suicide of sub-postmaster Martin Griffiths in 2013. As she gave evidence on Wednesday, Ms Venables admitted she made mistakes, but denied there was a conspiracy to cover up the scandal. She apologised for a comment she made to MPs in June 2012, when she said sub-postmasters had been tempted to put their hands in the till, adding that it was an assumption she made. The former chief executive said there was no motivation to put the needs of the post office over the suffering of the sub-postmasters, but added, "There will be many examples of where that is clearly the case, because the post office got this very wrong." She told the inquiry an email she sent to colleagues, which suggested the company's priority was to protect sub-postmasters for whom the Horizon system was working, reads badly today. Ms Venables began her evidence by apologising for all that sub-postmasters and families have suffered. Asked if she was the unluckiest CEO in the United Kingdom, she said that she had been too trusting. After detailing a number of cases in which the post office had not been successful after sub-postmasters blamed Horizon, counsel to the inquiry Jason Beer, KC, asked, "Why were you telling these parliamentarians that every prosecution involving the Horizon system had been successful and had found in favour of the post office?" After a short pause, in which she appeared to compose herself, Ms Venables said, "I fully accept now that the post office—" She broke off her answer to grab a tissue and held her head in her hands for a brief moment before recomposing herself. Ms Venables continued, "The post office knew that, and I completely accepted. Personally, I didn't know that, and I'm incredibly sorry that it happened to those people and to so many others." Of her comment that sub-postmasters were being led into temptation, Ms Venables said, "That's a more difficult one to talk about. The first thing I would say is that to apologise, because I'm very aware that it was not the case and it was an assumption I made." Ms Venables explained the assumption was based on examples of cases and what she had been told. She also appeared to become emotional as Mr Beer asked her about Mr Griffiths. An email chain between former Post Office General Counsel Susan Crichton and Ms Venables was shown to the inquiry, in which Miss Venables said, "If it is an attempted suicide, as we sadly know, there are usually several contributory factors." Asked why she was raising contributory factors, she said she was very sorry, adding, "Every email you will see from me about Mr Griffiths, I start with him and how he was and how his family are. The post office took far too long to deal with it." She was also shown an email she had sent to a former General Counsel and Company Secretary Jane MacLeod, ex-Communications Director Mark Davis, and current Chief Financial Officer Alistair Cameron. The email read, "Our priority is to protect the business and get the thousands who operated under the same rules and didn't get into difficulties." She told the inquiry on Wednesday, "I am sorry first of all because this reads badly today. That wasn't how I intended it to be read. I had been told, and the inquiry has heard other people say the same, that nothing had been found, and so my understanding at this time was that the way the business was operating was an acceptable way, and what I was trying to say here is that we needed to make sure that the business as it was operating remained a priority for us." Asked about what Mr Cameron told the inquiry previously, that Ms Venables did not believe there had been any miscarriages of justice during her tenure, she said, "I think that's right." Mr Beer also asked if she believed there was a conspiracy at the post office to deny you information and to deny you documents and to falsely give you reassurance. Ms Venables replied, "No, I don't believe that was the case." She went on, "I have been disappointed, particularly more recently, listening to evidence of the inquiry where I think I remember people knew more than perhaps either they remembered at the time or I knew of at the time. I have no sense that there was any conspiracy at all. My deep sorrow in this is that I think that individuals, myself included, made mistakes, didn't see things, didn't hear things. I may be wrong, but that wasn't the impression that I had at the time. I have more questions now, but a conspiracy feels too far-fetched. The inquiry heard that Ms. Venables had prepared a 775-page witness statement, which took 7 months to write. Hundreds of sub-postmasters were prosecuted by the business between 1999 and 2015, after Horizon, owned by Japanese company Fujitsu, made it appear as though money was missing at their branches. The Metropolitan Police previously said they are looking at potential fraud offences arising out of the prosecution of sub-postmasters, such as monies recovered as a result of prosecutions or civil actions. 2 Fujitsu experts who were witnesses in the trials are being investigated for perjury and perverting the course of justice, but nobody has been arrested since the inquiry was launched in January 2020. There are unlikely to be any criminal charges until Inquiry Chairman Sir Win Williams completes his final report, which is expected to be published next year. Hundreds of sub-postmasters are still awaiting compensation, despite the government announcing that those who have had convictions quashed are eligible for £600,000 payoffs. That article was written by Josh Carmichael. This is from the Herald Scotland on Thursday the 23rd of May 2024 from the news section. SSE underlines likely jobs impact of wind farm off Edinburgh. This article is written by Mark Williamson. SSE has underlined the value of a giant Scottish wind farm and the potential of an even bigger one, which has been hit by SNP government planning delays. The Perth-based group said output from the new Sea Green wind farm off the Angus coast helped its renewable energy generating arm to record a big increase in profits in the latest year, although wind conditions posed challenges. Chief Executive Alistair Phillips-Davis told journalists that other great projects SSE is working on include plans for the Berwick Bank wind farm in the outer Firth of Forth, which, he noted, could become the world's biggest. The wind farm would require £15 billion of investment, and the development process could support more than 4,500 jobs. However, the project was not awarded the required Scottish Government planning consent in time for SSE to apply for UK Government support in the latest funding round. The company noted, in December 2023, East Lothian Council granted planning permission in principle for the project's onshore transmission infrastructure and grid connection at Branxton. However, the project continues to await consent for the offshore array from the Scottish Government, which is now expected during 2024. The delay raises questions about the Scottish Government's ability to take the practical steps needed to deliver the just transition to a low-carbon energy system it has promised. Former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon announced the launch of a £500 million Just Transition Fund in 2021. MSPs expressed concern about the effectiveness of the initiative in March, after the budget allocation for 2024 to 25 was cut to £12 million, from £50 million in the preceding year. But SSE has come under fire for its treatment of the Scottish supply chain. In 2020, the group awarded the contract to manufacture the 114 turbines for Seagreen to Vestas of Denmark, which decided to make the vast bulk of them on the Isle of Wight. In December 2021, SSE said it would commit £15 million to a £110 million project to develop the Nig offshore wind turbine tower manufacturing plant in a move that was hailed by Ms Sturgeon. The company said then, SSE Renewables expects to announce a first order contract with Now in the near future. 6 months later, it was reported that the Spanish tower manufacturer that planned to be a partner in the project, Hazier, was no longer involved. A spokesperson for SSE said the group remains supportive of Global Energy Group's plan to deliver a tower facility at Port of Nig. SSE has welcomed Sumitomo's plans to develop a cable production plant at Nig. The spokesperson noted, in the last financial year, SSE made a major contribution to communities by adding a £1.57 billion to Scotland's GDP and by supporting more than 13,000 Scottish jobs, many of which are highly skilled roles focused on transforming our energy system. SSE said it made an economic contribution to the UK worth £6 billion in the latest year, in line with last time. The company reckons it supported 53,230 jobs in the UK in the latest year, up 30% from 39,940 in 2022 to 2023. That article was written by Mark Williamson.
This article is from the Herald on Thursday, the 23rd of May, 2024. It is in the Voices section and the headline is, Could This Be the Thing That Spells the End of the Union? By Rebecca McQuillan. Some certainties of Scottish life have just been reaffirmed. We thought summer was beckoning, so biblical amounts of rain have drowned our hoopies. And an SNP First Minister has made ambitious promises about what his government hopes to achieve, while blaming Westminster in advance if it doesn't work out. Business as usual. The independence question and the blame game that goes with it is never absent from Scottish political life. But everyone knows that independence is as relevant to the here and now as sunglasses and pina colada. There's no chance of a referendum in the foreseeable, and people don't want one imminently anyway, even many SNP supporters. But for those background figures on both sides of the debate who are ever vigilant to the possibilities, some extra information came to light this week that will have cheered one side and worried the other. People's sense of national identity is changing, with our sense of belonging to the UK apparently weakening. The results of the 2022 census show that the percentage of people who say Scottish is their only national identity has increased since the previous census from 62.4% to 65.5%. Not a huge increase perhaps, but when you set that against what has happened to British national identity in Scotland, it looks more significant. The percentage who said their only national identity was British did increase from the low base of 8.4% to 13.9%, but the proportion who said they felt both Scottish and British plummeted from 18.3% to 8.2%. Clearly, people's sense of identity has become more polarised in the 11 years between 2011 and 2022. But there's something else interesting here. Those who feel wholly or partly British has fallen from 26.7% overall to 22.1%, driven by that huge drop in people saying they are both British and Scottish. This is striking because that dual Scottish-British identity is something the founding mothers and fathers of devolution might have expected we'd all feel at this point. Fewer than 1 in 10 of us apparently do. It looks right now like it could almost die out. A purely Scottish identity, meanwhile, has become even more dominant. The significance of this for the independence debate is this, that a strongly Scottish identity is associated with a greater likelihood of supporting independence. This is backed up by the Scottish Social Attitudes Survey, which found support for leaving the UK increased by a whopping 33 percentage points between 2010 and 2019, among those who say they are Scottish, not British. Since 2014, there's been a gap of 50 percentage points in support for independence between those who feel wholly Scottish and those who feel wholly or mainly British. This suggests that the more people who shed their British identity, the better for the independence campaign. But how could these trends change if the Tories are ejected from government? That's the big question now. The census was taken in 2022 at the nadir of Boris Johnson's time in office, just before he was forced out for serial lying. Everyone was feeling the vicious bite of the cost of living crisis, and the folly of Brexit was writ large in the economic data. The SNP was still riding high, and Nicola Sturgeon was still haloed by comparison with her louche UK counterparts, though her political magic was starting to fade. The irresponsible behaviour of that Westminster government, a government Scotland hadn't voted for, seemed to highlight a fundamental incompatibility of outlook between people north and south of Berwick. But what if the Labour Party were in charge at Westminster? How would that impact people's sense of Britishness? Research on support for Scottish independence shows that it's become associated with liberal values. Could a centre-left, liberal, Labour-run regime at Westminster that shared many fundamental values with the centre-left, liberal SNP-run regime at Holyrood help voters reconnect with their British identity? We simply don't know, but it's a possibility. As someone with English parents but born, raised and living in Scotland, I'm surprised to find that a Scottish-British identity has become rather uncommon. My sense of identity is best described as fiercely Scottish in the south of England, British in the north of England, and a tiny bit English in Scotland. These census results make me realise it's a bit of a privilege to feel a degree of ownership of all parts of these isles. A few years back, running along Offa's Dyke on the Welsh-English border in the late afternoon sunlight, I had a wee moment. I drank in the gorgeous views on both sides of the border and considered it all mine, or as much mine as anyone's. I've had the same feeling at the tops of Benaki and Kernel Mount and Ben Nevis. Perhaps this is something to do with having English, Welsh and Northern Irish heritage. Does wearing a thistle in one lapel and a white rose of York in the other allow you to take a more dispassionate view of the arguments for and against Scottish independence, since you have a foot in both camps? I certainly won't make that bold a claim. It implies that those with a firm Scottish identity are pre-programmed to support independence, and that's clearly untrue. There are plenty who are deeply and stubbornly sceptical about the wisdom of Scotland leaving the UK because they simply don't buy the sales pitch. Some folk from elsewhere in the UK are enthused about independence. Searching, rational debate has always been central to the politics of the Constitution, and long may it continue. Still, these latest census results matter. The link between national identity and constitutional preference is a guide, not a firm predictor, but it still matters. If any incoming Labour government wants to ensure that changing sense of national identity doesn't have unwanted constitutional consequences, then they must create a Westminster government that in words, actions and priorities is much more attuned to the preferences of Scottish voters. The Indie question may be on the back burner, but it never really goes away. That report was by Rebecca McQuillan.
From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 27th of May, from the news section. Robert Gordon University student wins prestigious RCN award. Report by Josh Carmichael. A recent graduate from Aberdeen's Robert Gordon University has received a prestigious award from the Royal College of Nursing. Chloe Jackson has been named Nursing Student of the Year at the Royal College of Nursing, RCN, Scotland, Nurse of the Year Awards, in recognition of her exceptional achievements during her studies. Ms. Jackson spent her time at Robert Gordon University raising awareness for neurodiversity within her nursing role and in the RCN Student Committee. The recent graduate set up a group dedicated to supporting nurses with conditions like autism, ADHD, and other spectrum disorders called Support and Understanding for Neurodivergent Nurses, SUNN. She also launched a podcast and blog about her own nursing journey in the process. Upon receiving the prestigious award, Chloe, who is also neurodivergent, said, "I am truly humbled to be named Student Nurse of the Year, and I am honoured to have had the opportunity to support my fellow nurses who are neurodivergent. As a neurodivergent student nurse myself, I know firsthand the challenges that can come with navigating a traditional healthcare education, but I also know with the right support and accommodations, we can thrive and make a meaningful difference in the lives of our patients. I am proud to have studied at Robert Gordon University, where I was able to develop my skills and knowledge in a supportive and inclusive environment. I'm grateful to my educators, mentors and peers who have helped me grow and flourish as a student nurse. I hope that my work will inspire other neurodivergent students to pursue their dreams in nursing, and I am committed to continue to advocate for inclusivity and accessibility in healthcare education. This award is not just a recognition of my own achievements, but a testament to the power of neurodiverse voices and perspectives in shaping the future of healthcare. I'm thrilled to be representing Robert Gordon University as Student Nurse of the Year, and I look forward to using this platform to make a positive impact on the nursing profession." Chloe graduated in December 2023, but it was her second spell at the university in Aberdeen, having previously studied BA Honours Hospitality Management and a master's degree in digital marketing. Her path to nursing was a career she had always considered, having had parents and a grandmother who were all nurses, and after gaining experience and growing in confidence, Chloe decided to return to Robert Gordon University and study BSc Adult Nursing. Picking up skills in other fields is something Chloe credits for some of her success, and when graduating at Aberdeen Music Hall last year, she also wore a Heart of Grampian tartan designed by one of her patients she was caring for while training at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. Robert Gordon University's Dean of School Nursing, Midwifery and Paramedic Practice said the Royal College of Nursing Award should be the first of many for Chloe after making such a promising start in her nursing career. Professor Susan Dock said, "I am delighted that our recent Robert Gordon University graduate Chloe Jackson won the prestigious Royal College of Nursing Scotland Nursing Student of the Year Award. It is very well deserved, and I am so proud of Chloe and her achievements. Chloe was a fantastic student nurse who championed causes that are important to students, particularly inclusivity. Chloe has a very bright future indeed, and I am sure this award will be one of many that she receives in her career." And that article was written by Josh Carmichael. From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 27th of May, from the news section. Serial killer Peter Tobin inquiry to be held in September. Article written by Josh Carmichael. A fatal accident inquiry into the death of a Scottish serial killer will be held in September, it has been confirmed. Peter Tobin, who was serving a full life order sentence, died on October the 8th, 2022 at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. The 76-year-old had been an inmate at the HMP Edinburgh, where he was taken to hospital on September the 9th, 2022, following a fall in his cell the previous night. Tobin was serving the sentence for the murders of Angelica Cluck, 23, Vicky Hamilton, 15, and Dina McNichol, 18. The killer has long been suspected by police of murdering several other women, as he lived under more than 40 aliases and had over 150 cars in his life. His ashes were scattered at sea. After a brief virtual hearing before Sheriff McCarran on Monday, all parties confirmed they were ready to proceed, and a date of September the 17th, 2024 was set for the fatal accident inquiry into Tobin's death. Tobin had been receiving palliative care before his death as his health worsened. He was monitored by GOME officers at all times while in Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. The inquiry, mandatory by law, will look into the cause of death, the circumstances in which it occurred, and will establish whether any reasonable precautions could have been taken to prevent the death. It aims to minimise the risk of deaths in the future. Fatal accident inquiries are used to establish facts, as opposed to arbitrating blame to an individual or group. Procurator Fiscal Andy Shanks, who leads the fatalities investigations for Scotland's prosecution service, said previously, "The Lord Advocate considers that the death of Peter Tobin occurred while in legal custody and, as such, a fatal accident inquiry is mandatory." And the article was written by Josh Carmichael. From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 27th of May, from the Politics section. Tory alarm over national service as PM doubles down on plan, by political correspondent Kathleen Nutt. Tory Minister Steve Baker has said the compulsory national service plan was sprung upon Conservative candidates as discontent mounts in his party over the Prime Minister's faltering election performance. Writing on social media, the Northern Ireland Minister suggested it had been a government policy he would have had a say because of the particular sensitivities around Northern Ireland, where, historically, recruitment to the UK Armed Forces has been a controversial issue among Irish nationalists. He said, "Government policy would have been developed by ministers on the advice of officials and, collectively agreed. I would have had a say on behalf of NI. But this proposal was developed by a political advisor or advisors and sprung on candidates, some of whom are relevant ministers." But in a separate development, Foreign Office Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan suggested today that failure to carry out national service could harm people's job prospects as she backed the scheme. She told ITV's Good Morning Britain, "This will be encouraged and will become part of the norms." Importantly, of course, what you then as a young person apply for a job, there will be a question that employers will want to know how you got involved, either because you were able to achieve one of the 30,000 places in the armed forces, or because you were volunteering in one or other part of your community. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak is doubling down on his plan to revive national service and will urge bosses to give priority to job applicants who have served time in the military. The plan has caused concern in the armed forces amid fears it could impose strains on the military. Labour's deputy leader Angela Rayner denounced Mr Sunak's plan to divert £1.5 billion a year from the Levelling Up funds for deprived regions to help pay for the desperate scheme. A further £1 billion would come from tackling tax avoidance and evasion. "I don't know whether to laugh or cry," one former Conservative Party chair told the Financial Times, describing Mr Sunak's campaign so far. Another former party chair told the paper, "Words fail me." But the Prime Minister's allies believe the plan has achieved something that has eluded him for months: a hearing. Mr Sunak's manifesto pledged to make all 18-year-olds take part in a year-long military placement or to carry out 25 days of compulsory volunteering in the community was his biggest policy statement to date. The Prime Minister, if re-elected on July the 4th, will ask a Royal Commission to look at how the roughly 30,000 annual participants in the £2.5 billion a year military scheme could get a leg up in their career. Mr Sunak said one option would be to encourage employers to consider those who complete the armed forces placement during job applications. Other options could include offering them fast-track interviews for jobs, including the Civil Service Fast Stream programme, or giving them special consideration during applications for universities and apprenticeships. Mr Sunak said, "We want to make sure Britain's future generations can get the most out of the national service. That's why we're looking into ways it can open doors they wouldn't otherwise get in, work or education." But the policy of military national service was rejected only last week by Defence Minister Andrew Morrison, who said that having unwilling national service recruits could damage morale, recruitment and retention, and would consume professional military and naval resources. Home Secretary James Cleverly said yesterday the military route would not be compulsory and therefore recruits would be motivated. Whilst you will be compelled to take part in the national service, no one will be compelled to do the military bit, he said. National service was abolished in the UK in 1960, and senior military figures have privately warned reintroducing it would place a new burden on the armed forces. And that report was by Kathleen Nutt, and it was read by me, Ian McKenna. From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 27th of May, from the news section: Man dies after being hit by car on Cumbernauld Greenfalls Road. Report by Jodie Harrison. A man has died after he was struck by a car in Cumbernauld. Police have appealed for witnesses to the crash, which happened at Greenfalls Road on Sunday. Officers said the man, aged 49, was struck by a black Citroen C4 car just after 8 a.m. Emergency services attended and the pedestrian was taken to the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow by ambulance, where he later died. The car driver was not injured. The road was closed and reopened around 1:50 p.m. Sergeant Chris McComb of Lanarkshire Road Policing said, "Our thoughts are with the family and friends of the man who has died, and inquiries are ongoing to establish the full circumstances. We are asking anyone who saw what happened or who might have dashcam footage that could assist with our investigation to get in touch. If you can help, please call Police Scotland on 101, quoting incident number 1067 of Sunday, 26th of May, 2024. And that report was by Jodie Harrison. From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 27th of May, from the business section: Business Briefing by Brian Donnelly. Plan for short-term lets on famous Scottish street. Plans for serviced apartments or short-term lets on one of Scotland's most famous streets are to go before councillors this week. The Holiday Apartments plan is going to committee decision given the significance of the issue of short-term lets to the public interest at present. The proposal to transform empty or underused property above the Willow Tea Rooms on Princess Street in Edinburgh originally described the future offering as an apart hotel. Council papers show that application is for change of use on the second and third floors from food and drink to 14 serviced apartments to be operated and managed as one business. Given the significance of the issue of short-term lets to the public interest at present, the Chief Planning Officer considers this application should be decided by committee, papers show. The proposal is for the change of use from cafe to 14 serviced apartment units. The application is for the change of use only. Any physical alterations associated with the change of use will require listed building consent. The application was originally submitted as a change of use to apart hotel. However, it was subsequently agreed to change the description to serviced apartments, with this considered a more accurate description of the proposal. The terms serviced apartment and STL are interchangeable for the purposes of this assessment. The plans by the Thistle Property Holding Company are to be discussed on Wednesday. The papers recommend the application be granted. Scots planning processes must be more attractive to investors. One of Scotland's most successful property developers has criticised Scotland's planning system, saying it turns investors away and stifling the economy, warning that those who do want to invest will go south of the border instead of or overseas when the process is much quicker. Urban regeneration specialist Chris Stewart said that investors may want to come to Scotland, but warned that investment in property is very connected to local and national government and policies more so than many other businesses because we rely on local authorities to deliver roads consent, planning consent, building warrants and all those other bits and pieces. What are the costs of a comfortable retirement? We now have more information, more choices and more responsibility for our retirement savings, but will the future we want be the future we are able to get? The retirement living standards, launched by the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association, PLSA, aims to help people picture what kind of lifestyle they could have in the future. Pitched at 3 levels, minimum, moderate and comfortable, the standards have been designed to act as a practical and meaningful starting point for anyone who is unsure about how much they need to save. And that was the business briefing by Brian Donnelly.
The Herald on the 28th of May and the news section. Man dies in HGV crash walking on A85 slip road for A9 Perth bypass by Jodie Harrison. A pedestrian has died after being struck by 2 HGVs on a busy city bypass. The man was struck after he walked onto the A9 Perth bypass during the early hours of Tuesday morning. Emergency services were called to the on-slip road for the A85, close to the pedestrian footbridge, around 12:35 a.m. The 53-year-old was pronounced dead on the scene. The road was closed for around 6 hours and reopened at 6:30 a.m. Police Sergeant Brian McEwen, Perth Road Policing, said, "Our thoughts are with the family and friends of the man who has died. Despite the time of night, the A9 was still busy with traffic and our inquiries are ongoing to establish the full circumstances surrounding the crash. I would also like to speak to anyone who was in the area from around 12:20 a.m. and may have seen what happened. I'm also appealing for anyone with relevant dashcam footage to get in touch on 101, costing incident 0099 of 28 May 2024. And that's by Jodie Harrison. The Herald on the 28th of May and the news section. Mountain path repair appeal raises over £200,000 in a year by Gabriel Mackay. A campaign to raise £300,000 for essential mountain path repairs has received 73% of its funding target in its first 12 months. Mountaineering Scotland said the Outdoor Access Trust for Scotland, OATS, launched its Up to Us in 2023 for the upkeep of walkways on the nation's peaks, with the initial phase focused on repairing 3.2 kilometres of badly eroded path on the An Teallach. In the years since, £218,000 has been raised, and contractors from Cairngorm Wilderness Contracts, CWC, have so far completed 340 metres of path building and maintenance work on the mountain. The 3-year campaign has received donations from the Scottish Mountaineering Trust, European Outdoor Conservation Association, EOCA, and other charitable trusts, £154,858, a major private donor, £25,000, the general public, £24,996, commercial donations, £7,550, and mountaineering and hill walking clubs, £5,900. As the campaign enters its second year, Mountaineering Scotland and OATS are issuing a further appeal to all hill path users, outdoor and conservation businesses, organisations and charities who care deeply about the conservation of the hills they use and love to support the campaign and help them reach the £300,000 required to complete the An Teallach project. The campaign is also calling on government to help develop a sustainable funding model for building and maintenance work across Scotland's upland path network to ensure it is kept fit for purpose for future generations. Walking tourism is estimated to be worth around £1.6 billion per year to the Scottish economy. However, there is no government funding for path work on privately owned land. 83% of paths in Scotland that is not in the 2 national parks or NGO estates. Post-Brexit EU funding that was previously accessible to private landowners has been lost and not replaced. CEO of the Outdoor Access Trust Scotland, CEO Dougie Baird, said it has been an encouraging start to the It's Up to Us fundraising campaign, with a great response from charitable trusts in particular. We are hugely grateful for all our individual public donors and will be encouraging other hill users to follow their fine example in the coming year to help fix the badly eroded path on this iconic mountain. Mountaineering Scotland CEO Stuart Uni said, "It's been great to see the progress we have made over the last year since launching It's Up to Us. Many thanks to all the people and organisations who have either contributed financially, helped us to raise the profile of the campaign, or volunteered to repair the path on Antalach. We're very grateful for all the support we have received and are well on our way to reaching our target, but there is still a lot more to do to deliver our ambition of establishing a sustainable funding model to support the maintenance and upkeep of our mountain paths. Antalach is one of many mountains in Scotland that needs our support, and it's up to all of us to do something about it. And that was by Gabriel Mackay. The Herald on the 26th of May and the news section. North Lanarkshire-based football club receive American investment by Josh Carmichael. The Scottish Lowland League football team has smashed a fundraising target by raising $1 million with the help of investors across the world. The owner of Caledonian Braves, a 5-year-old football club from the 5th tier of the Scottish football pyramid, set out to attract investors from across the globe by presenting everyone who donated the chance to be an owner of the club. Anyone who donated $100 or more would become part owner of the Caledonian Braves. The initial target for fundraising was £750,000 with the aim of raising the full amount by the end of July this year, but it has since been smashed well ahead of the deadline. It now means the team can look to put some of the $1 million, which equates to just over £780,000 back into the club to increase its chances of reaching the Scottish Professional Football League after they finished 12th in the Lowland League this season. Owner Chris Ewing said, "Our manager Ricky Waddle has already made his pitch for a bigger player budget for the next season, and it's natural that we would want to invest some of the money raised into improving the squad. Ultimately, we want to continue our journey into the SPFL, but we want to do it responsibly by staying true to our vision and values as a community club with fans at the heart of our decision making. We have big plans for the club, and the recent investment will help us take significant strides forward in terms of the playing squad, but also infrastructural improvements off the field. More importantly, we now have more than 3,000 owners who believe in that vision and want to play an active part in getting us there." The idea for the fundraiser came from Mr. Ewing, and it attracted new shareholders of the club from the NBA, NFL, and the National Women's Soccer League in the United States. The owner says the club can now also claim the distinction of having owners in each of the 50 states of America. Shareholders now include Isaiah Covington, strength and conditioning coach, Boston Celtics, Michaba Egluda, NBA Players Services, Kristen Hamilton, Elizabeth Ball and Hallie Mace, Kansas City Women's, Tide Osifeso, Basketball Operations, Utah Jazz, Ryan Rollins, point guard, Washington Wizards, Kevin Abrams, Senior Vice President, Football Operations, NY Giants, and Dean Whitehouse, NASA. Established in 2019, the North Lanarkshire-based club has put fan interaction at the heart of decision-making since day one, with the name being chosen through a fan opinion poll. They have since used app-based technology and fan interaction to make decisions from boardroom to dressing room, including naming their stadium Alliance Park in North Lanarkshire, approving new kits and agreeing on the strategic priorities for the board. Mr. Ewing said the new investment is a victory for the everyday football fan and hopes to partly emulate the likes of Wrexham FC, who are on a mission to rise through the leagues in England after Hollywood A-listers Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought them. He said the idea of the Braves was simple. We are a small fish in Scottish football, but in the digital age where there are no boundaries to get involved and play a part in the running of a club. We wanted to create a club for everyone, wherever they are, to play a meaningful role in for as little as $100. You could be the owner of a football club. That has appealed to fans of all ages and in all corners of the world. We wanted to buck the trend of needing to have billions of pounds or a private equity firm to have a say in the running of the club. We wanted to put the fan at the heart of everything we do. The response has been terrific, but I always had confidence in our vision. It shows if you build the right format, people will come and not just be a part of it, but play an active part in it. And that was by Josh Carmichael. The Herald on the 28th of May and the news section. SNP to force vote on Palestine recognition if calls ignored, by Jodie Harrison. Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer must immediately recognise the state of Palestine, John Swinney has said. The SNP leader has written to his political opponents, demand they do the right thing. He said the SNP would force a binding vote to Westminster after the general election if they fail to do so. His letter to the Prime Minister and Labour leader Sir Keir said, "I urge you both to belatedly do the right thing and pledge to immediately recognise Palestine as a state in its own right. If you will not immediately commit to doing so, I confirm that SNP MPs will bring forward a binding vote in the House of Commons at the first possible opportunity after the general election." Scottish First Minister Mr Swinney said recognition would offer hope that a durable political solution was possible between Israel and Palestine. He said ending the humanitarian catastrophe we are seeing in Gaza is without a doubt one of the greatest moral issues of our time. In generations to come, people will look back and ask what each of us with a platform did to end the suffering. We all have a duty to do whatever we can to bring about a peaceful resolution, and it is clear that a full recognition of Palestine as a state in its own right will be a huge step towards a just and durable political solution. I'm calling on the UK to follow the lead of Ireland, Norway and Spain by immediately recognising Palestine as a state. And if Rishi Sunak will not do it now, Keir Starmer must commit to doing so on his first day in Downing Street. The SNP, he said, has been a moral compass on the Gaza issues at Westminster. The UK government and Labour Party has been asked for comment. Comes as SNP MSP John Mason said the International Criminal Court, ICC, was biased against Israel after it stated it would seek the arrest of senior Hamas leaders and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for alleged war crimes. In an email to show Israel the red card, a group urging politicians to sever sporting links with the country, he said the ICC was not neutral and are biased against Israel. A Labour Party spokesman said the Labour Party will work alongside international partners to recognise the state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel as part of efforts to contribute to securing a negotiated two-state solution. And that's by Jodie Harrison. The Herald on the 20th of May and the news section. Thousands of bees killed in vandalism attack on Tayside Farm by Josh Carmichael. The owners of a Tayside farm have expressed their utter contempt for the people who vandalised their property over the weekend, leaving 2,000 bees dead. Police in the area are appealing for information after parts of the Toft Hill farm in Incrier were damaged in a vandalism incident. Officers say the damage must have taken place between 5 p.m. on Friday 24th of May and 10 a.m. on Saturday 25th May. Those responsible for the overnight attack have yet to be traced after the damage left 2,000 bees dead and multiple fresh strawberry plants ruined. The owners of the farm have released a statement saying how disappointed they are with the attack on their property, especially after an incredibly difficult winter and during a time when food production in Scotland is becoming harder every year. A spokesperson for the farm said, "We are incredibly disappointed to be subjected to vandalism at the weekend. Aside from jumping on our equipment and damaging it, the most heartbreaking aspect of it is that some 2,000 bees were killed and a dozen of fresh strawberry plants were maliciously damaged. Bees are truly the most magnificent and efficient pollinators on any farm, and it's thanks to them we all get fed. After an incredibly difficult winter for farming, where it's getting harder and harder to produce food, we only have utter contempt for the individuals who have caused thousands of pounds worth of damage. Anyone with information is asked to contact police on 101, quoting incident 1838 of 25/524 and crime ref CR/0190102/24. And that was by Josh Carmichael. The Herald on the 28th of May and the news section. TUI cabin crew deploy to Glasgow after 10,000 people apply by Jodie Harrison. More than 10,000 applications to become cabin crew flying were made in the first week of the jobs being advertised. Airline TUI said that it was unprecedented interest in the roles, which will see 41 new staff flying out of Glasgow Airport. The air crews have undergone months of gruelling training and will now be deployed on the travel company's flights from Scotland's largest city. In addition, 4 extra pilots have begun working at the Scottish hub. TUI's head of cabin crew management, Ian Campbell, said this year we saw unprecedented interest, with thousands applying for the roles available and 10,000 applications flying in during the first week. The majority of the training takes place at TUI's training centre in East Midlands, where the new recruits are put through their paces and learn safety and service. Ms. Campbell said one day we could be teaching them how to safely pour a cup of tea, and the next day they are jumping out of an aircraft on our safety evacuation slide. This isn't a normal 9 to 5. We operate 24/7, 365 days a year, and the training is about getting new recruits into that mindset. The new cabin crew have been recruited to work across each of TUI's 23 regional bases. Before taking to the skies, new graduate attended their wings ceremony and the ultimate celebration of everything they have achieved over their 6 weeks of training. Ian Campbell said their commitment to working and studying hard to be the best cabin crew they can is inspiring and fuels the entire team's motivation. The new entrants inject a wonderful dose of positive energy into our regional bases, and their excitement is contagious. The sheer volume of learning is always a shock to entrants, but when they get their wings and put on their uniforms, it becomes real. They're finally in the job they've aspired to. TUI's most popular destinations from Glasgow Airport for this summer are Tenerife, Gran Canaria and Cancun, Mexico. And that was by Jodie Harrison.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Tuesday the 28th of May 2024 from the business section. Edinburgh chef reveals reasons behind St Andrew's move. This article is by Scott Wright. The chief patron of an award-winning Edinburgh restaurant has revealed why he feels the time is right to open a second venture under his Ondine seafood brand. Roy Brett will open an Ondine oyster and grill in St Andrews as part of a new 40-bedroom luxury hotel currently under development. Valor Hospitality Partners plans to launch Seaton House in the former Scores Hotel, which overlooks the town's West Sands beach that famously appeared in Chariots of Fire in early 2025 in partnership with US-based Lynx Collection. The Ondine project came about through Mr. Brett's long-standing friendship and working relationship with Ewan McGlashan, a luxury hotel operator who co-founded Valor with Steve Sessinger in 2021. Valor runs hotels for a range of major hotel brands around the world, including IHG and Hilton. Mr. Brett told the Herald, "I have been doing work with Valor Hotels and Ewan McGlashan, one of the CEOs of the hotel group. I have known him for a number of years, and we have been great friends. The opportunity came up that we could go into the old Scores Hotel to do an Ondine oyster and grill, which we just feel is the right time for us now. We have waited for 15 years to do a second site in terms of an Ondine, so it is not that we have rushed into it, or we have not had stability or the credentials. We were always thinking that we would just be the single Ondine oyster and grill, but we then made a decision that we feel strong enough now. I think it's an opportunity for not just myself but the whole team, for their personal growth. It is really important. Everybody is quite excited about it." Mr. Brett is under no illusions about how tough it will be to establish Ondine in St Andrews, which he said was home to a number of great restaurants. He hopes Ondine will be able to take advantage of the strong network of suppliers already supporting the dining out scene in the town. "There will be challenges up there," said Mr. Brett, whose career has included managing restaurants for renowned chef Rick Stein. "We really respect the fact that there is a lot of good restaurants up in St Andrews. With all these great restaurants, there are a lot of great suppliers around there. I have got a lot of great friends up there who are running restaurants, and I have a lot of time for them. We've been friends for a very long time. So I think going up there, it is just respecting what is there and really enjoying the relationships that we have built, like we have in Edinburgh with other restaurants, to get the best out of the land and the sea that surrounds us. The East Neuk of Fife has just got an incredible larder, and we are in a very privileged position. We are just looking forward to it. We are looking forward to what we always enjoy, which are the seasons, the produce, and the provenance of where it all comes from. Asked whether the new restaurant would be able to secure all of the seafood it needs from the East Neuk of Fife, Mr. Brett said, "Yes, I do think so. There is such an abundance up there. I just feel that it will be good to work with the local market there as well. We will always have key suppliers that we will always work with, but there are so many good suppliers up there. We're really looking forward to making new relationships and keeping as much of the business in the local area as possible." The Ondine at Seaton House will be joined by a second food and drink offering at the hotel from Mr. Brett and his team. Mr. Brett is keeping details of plans for the second offer under wraps for now, although he said that both restaurants will be accessible for all. Meanwhile, Mr. Brett, who opened the first Ondine in Edinburgh's George IV Street in 2008, said the restaurant sector was continuing to feel the strain from high costs. Energy prices are still high, while hopes in the hospitality sector for a reduction in value-added tax seem unlikely to come to fruition. It is still tight and product prices are still going up the way, Mr. Brett said. There does not seem to be a ceiling on increases on produce. Utilities seem to have stabilized, but when I say stable, they are still high. We all really want them to come down a little bit more to make it more viable. He also said that there has been a change in consumer behaviour in the capital, with people seemingly reluctant to eat out later in the evening. Local customers are more likely to dine earlier in the evenings, though tourists appear more willing to come in for the later slots. Mr. Brett said, "When you get a 9:30 p.m. table, it is a little unusual. That is one of the biggest ones that we see. It is a shorter market throughout the week. Business locally does not seem to be out as late as it used to. It is a strange one. I don't get it. But there must be something there. I remember COVID and everybody was told to get home early, and I don't know if that is still there." Asked whether this trend reflected a concern over insufficient public transport provision, as has been highlighted in Glasgow, Mr. Brett added, "It is a changed market for sure. It is one of the most significant ones that I see, the change in the timings. You lose an hour of business a day, but you just have to keep going." Despite seeing businesses continuing to close in Edinburgh because of cost pressures, Mr. Brett said independents are still coming through with new ideas and concepts, which he said was encouraging. People still like to enjoy local businesses, Mr. Brett said. Edinburgh and Glasgow have got good independent restaurants, and I think they still have got relevance. That article was by Scott Wright.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels, review, and to tell your friends about our service.